Hey everyone, Chris Lopez here, and in this episode, we're going to talk about another deal analysis. I think this is the first time on here we've talked about a new build townhome that'll be used as a Nomad property on the podcast. So it's a very interesting deal analysis because it's definitely like a higher end property. And so it's interesting to see how the numbers, play out. And this is actually one in Jefferson Park. So just, high-end property in a hot part of town that we'll be talking about today. And punchline, the numbers still make sense as a long-term rental and Nomad. So stay tuned as we go through all those. And before we dive into it, my co-host today is Lauren Valinoti. How are you?
Doing good, Chris. How are you doing today?
Doing great. And just in case you guys, this is the second deal analysis I'm doing with Lauren. We just did the previous one, or the previous episode was the West Highlands house hack. If you guys missed that, Lauren is a new member of the team. We were able to partner up a couple months ago, just a great opportunity. But Lauren and I have known each other for a handful of years now.
Yep.
Just, became friends. We've, done a lot of stuff back and forth just as real estate professionals, and just good opportunity came up for us to partner up, which was always on our long-term radar. So excited to have you on here and talk about a bunch of deals because you know this stuff. You got investment background, so this is up your alley.
Thanks for having me.
So for this client, this is actually a gentleman I talked to originally about, I think, two and a half years ago or so. And I think he had just relocated to Denver and was, wanting to get into investing. What happened back then, he just moved here and really said, hey, I just want to rent for a while, live in a cool part of downtown, young professional, enjoying the benefits of downtown when you're young and single. And also just with, I think it was through some family opportunities out of state, had a good opportunity, some out-of-state investing as well. Obviously, lower price point, a little better cash flow than Denver, one of those markets. And just made sense that he had family there that had some rentals as well. So it was a very good move for him. And then earlier this year, he reached back out, said, hey, at a point where I'm ready to stop renting, buy my first Nomad, and buy his second investment, but first one here in Denver. So, Lauren, talking about the property here, like I gave the background on the client. Give us some background on what he was looking for, because I know you know the numbers of what he was renting for and kind of the balance of, hey, buying something that makes sense and also still enjoying like some cool stuff that downtown has to offer.
Yeah, so he was wanting to do a townhouse, wanted something that was very easy to keep up, wanted something newer. And he was renting downtown in a brand new apartment building, very posh, but outrageous. So just between his rent, storage, it was a pretty penny, and he just started running numbers on some townhouses around town and just saw that he could definitely save money each month by going ahead and purchasing a property. So
which surprised me because like the actual, sorry to interrupt you there,
Yeah.
but like his mortgage, insurance, taxes, and all that stuff is actually lower than his rental income.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, his rental expense.
Rental expense, yeah. And I think we probably have to owe that a lot to these amazing interest rates.
That definitely helps.
So I think that was a big thing for him to finally pull the trigger and start looking.
And so I know you guys found this in MLS, and this was, I know it's a townhouse community, new build stuff, basically across the street from Jefferson Park, right?
Right across the street. Absolutely, just fantastic area to be able to have that green space right across from your unit. I think is definitely a plus. The street 23rd, you can kind of see on the map right here, that takes you directly into town. So very easy access. And what he really liked about it was a brand new townhouse build. There's about 8 units. There are 2 separate buildings. And his unit is not a end unit, but what's great about it is the building right next to him is zoned for only 2 stories. So it will never block his views in the kitchen or in his master bedroom, and it just provided a lot of natural light. This particular building, this developer does great work around town. He does smaller units just to stay below some of those like rules about X amount of units. If you have anything above X, then you have to do, what is it? It's like the affordable housing, etc. So this one was completed right whenever COVID hit. So there were a handful of units that were still available. A investor snagged the back two ones. They paid cash for it. They kind of started to scramble. Just they didn't know what was going to happen. So the front units, which go for a little over 800,000, they rented out one, and then they were under contract on the other one, but that one ended up falling through. So the developer was just kind of just scrambling, and like I said, he had two other builds going. And luckily this one was listed for 645. Because of that, we were able to get under contract for 640, which was great.
Which is pretty rare for new builds.
Correct. Yeah. Normally it's just more difficult to get a deal whenever you're one of the last ones to buy into it. Normally, we were talking about this earlier, Chris, one investor strategy is go in and buy the very first unit in a brand new development, because you're going to get a better price at that point. And as the builder continues to sell out the lots, they continue just to raise the base price, and literally before the house is even built or the townhouse, there's going to be appreciation there already. So it was just, again, COVID struck. The guy was just getting a little bit nervous and just obviously wanted to get, as much money out as possible. He had his holding cost, and we were able to get in there a little bit below. Another great thing was whenever you buy a brand new build, this is in a neighborhood where you're just surrounded by very old homes. But in a brand new build, you're able to go in and be as nitpicky as you want and do a blue tape walkthrough, because you are literally buying a brand new home. So you're expecting the house to be in that kind of shape. So we were able to just walk through with some blue tape and just mark every single thing that was pretty much wrong. Normally, you don't ever get to go and do anything like that with old homes. They always say if you want a brand new home, with what you're requesting, then you should go and buy one. So
you mentioned something here, because you said it's not a end unit, but it's like an end unit. So
yeah,
describe it. How many stories are these townhomes, or is his townhome?
So this one's actually built into a hill. So the first two units that are technically the end units, that one is 3 stories with a rooftop, with a basement. Those first two units. So technically it'd be four stories. And then as the earth slopes upward, which is where our clients is, that one is only going to be a 3-story with a rooftop. And so it had when you first walk in, that's where the garage is. It's the garage entrance. There is a powder room bathroom with a closet, and then when you walk up the stairs, that's where you're going to get to your kitchen area. That's where the washer and dryer is. It's the open floor plan layout, beautiful finishes, and there's also a powder room bathroom on that floor. You have windows there, and so just kind of touching onto what you're talking about, Chris, of it not being a end unit, but for the building right next door, it's a apartment complex. It's zoned for only being, I guess it would just like two stories high. So you look at the bottom of the roof, but you have beautiful trees right out of your kitchen area, and then you can also see some of the mountains. You can see the parks. And then on the next floor is where you're going to have your 2 bedrooms, and from his window, again, he has mountain views. It's, again, everything around it's zoned to where those views will always be there for him. And on the next floor is where they have their awesome rooftop deck, where hopefully we will all get an invite to go hang out. It's right by the stadium, the football stadium. So for fireworks, football, just all of that, you're going to really have just some awesome views. And then, of course, the mountains as well.
And because you're explaining, because you have a lot more experience in new builds than I do, and you're saying a lot of times, if it's a true end unit, they're going to be it's like 100,000 plus more of a premium a lot of times,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So this one doesn't have that extra premium, but you basically get the majority of the benefits, especially where it counts on the top floors.
Yeah, it's mostly when it comes to the natural light, because when you're on an end unit, you're going to have windows on like on every single corner, which
Oh, yeah.
allows for more natural light. When you're tucked in between additional units, then you're only going to have the windows on each end versus, on the other areas as well. But because that building is lower than the second floor, it just floods the house with light.
All right, so getting into the contract details, already talked about it. You kind of found it on MLS. You're able to get a few bucks below list price, which is great. And the inspection times, you said, I mean, you guys literally just, you walk around with a roll of like blue painter's tape.
Yep.
And just mark it. And I mean, it was all just cosmetic stuff, right?
Cosmetic, yep.
Paint and level some cabinets, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the builder did all those?
Yeah, the builder was like so nice. I've never met such a delightful developer builder in my entire life. So we were able to bond, and we actually got another client. It's our client's friend. Ended up also buying in this unit in this complex also. So I got to deal with the developer twice, and I hope to be able to do many more deals with him.
Yeah, I mean, based on on the inspection stuff as you're going through, I mean, just like lots of, like you said, good builder work, but also just does good work when it comes to like building the properties, which is, there are some good new builds and there are other new builds like, ooh,
Exactly.
They cut some corners.
Exactly, and especially whenever you're advising your clients, going out and looking at homes, that's definitely something that we're looking for. We're looking for good quality work because this is something that they're going to be buying and holding. This isn't something that they're just going to be living in. The average I think right now is like five years is what the average person stays in a home. So as things settle in the home, we want to make sure that the quality of construction is really well, and also it did come with a builder warranty also.
All right, so for financing, this client, he used a VA loan because he served in the military, so he's able to use a VA loan. So a couple things about the VA loans is that you can do a 0% down purchase. He ended up putting a little bit down to get below the jumbo loan limits, right? That was
correct.
I think, right. Yeah, so he put down right around like 3.5% of the purchase price. When it comes to PMI, that is not applicable to VA loans because there isn't any. However, there is a funding fee up front, which is added to the loan balance, which is, when I've run the numbers, it's pretty similar to like when you run the calculations in Joe's spreadsheet for like a PMI upfront prepayment. A lot of times kind of similar to that from the experience I have, but there's a funding fee. They don't come out of pocket on, it just gets tacked on the mortgage as well. So I think that we'll go with the numbers out as a couple $1,000 on this property. So VA loan, no seller concessions since it was a new build, and appraisal came in at value, which is phenomenal. So going into the spreadsheet here, again, we're using Joe's rental spreadsheet on here. So we're going to talk through numbers. If you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, email me or Lauren, and you can always click the show notes to have a couple of these screenshots that we're talking about on here. So we plugged in the purchase price of $640,000, and the funding fee for the VA loan was pretty close to the upfront mortgage insurance that the spreadsheet auto calculates. So we made a minor adjustment on the acquisition cost. But since it's a VA loan, there's a couple expenses that the seller is required by law to pay for. So acquisition costs tend to be lower. So it's about $4,000 total for acquisition cost and loan cost on here. Plus with his, down payment put on there, all in for just around $35,000 on a $640,000 property.
Yep.
Which is amazing, and just a great use of leverage. So interest rate, he got it at 2.75%. Now, we're going to kind of go on take a left turn tangent on here for a few minutes because this is such an important thing right now, where we've always stressed the importance of lenders. But that has even become more important since COVID happened, because as we were going through the process with our client, we always do, as you guys know, we're process driven. We run analyses, run properties, and he ran a couple analyses and sent us over a spreadsheet, and he had, I think it was like 3.75 or right around their interest rate, and we were like, hey, everything looks good, interest rate, that seems high. Is that, where'd you get that from? He's like, oh, my lender quoted me that. We said, oh, okay, so. And he's working with a big national lender. And so we said, hey, that seems really high to us right now. you should go talk to one of our local lenders, and I think your rate will probably be about 3/4 to a 1% lower point on there. So you want to talk to our local lenders and end up getting exactly 1% lower, which is a huge, huge gain. And that's, 25 or 30% lower than that. So it's a big difference on here. And the reason right now is just with, COVID, a lot of lenders have changed their underwriting guidelines. As we've talked about in previous podcasts, there's some servicing issues that some lenders are having. Some lenders are just getting overwhelmed with refis, so they're actually like increasing their interest rates on purchases to slow down the influx on there. So just because you worked with a lender in the past, really make sure you do your due diligence on there. And as you know, the listeners know, we always like working with local lenders, so we hooked him with one of our local lenders. He came in, looked at it, gave him a better quote, came in, got the job done, and our client saved a bunch of money and actually made this from a property that would be negative cash flowing to, exactly. I think we're right around like a slightly positive now.
Yeah, I mean, for these numbers to even work with this sort of price, we really needed his rate to be below what the big national bank was offering. So yeah, he got that 2.75 without even having to pay for points on that. So that was fantastic. So I'm excited to look at these other numbers.
And so since this is a Nomad property, so he's going to live there and he's going to stay there. Might be a year, might be a couple years, and then when he moves out, he's going to keep it as a rental. And again, we always talk strategy, and his strategy, he's on the younger side. And just has a very long-term outlook, very long-term wealth-building approach. And just says, hey, I want to balance something where I can save money right now on my rent, live somewhere cool, but have an asset that's going to, appreciate and have also just, strong demand and some rent as well. So the rental income on here, we're estimating at $3,500. And as you're doing some digging around here, you found some great comps that prove those numbers.
Yeah, so like I mentioned in the very beginning, a investor bought both of the back units cash, and I just went on to Zillow just to go look at some rent rates around there, and saw that there was actually a unit for rent in that exact complex. So was able to scroll down and find the property manager's contact info. And it actually ended up being the investor.
Oh, so it was the owner self-managing?
It was the owner self-managing, and he gave me some great insight. So, once I saw that number, 3,500, you kind of scratch your head and you really want to make sure that that is a true number. And he let me know that on his other unit, he had already rented that out for 3,400. It didn't have a washer and dryer installed yet. So the renters were going to bring in their own washer and dryer. So that's the reason why he had that $100 reduction on the rent for that one. And then he was actively trying to rent out the other one for 3,500. And he said he had like seven showings that actual day that I was chatting with him.
Oh,
so I felt very confident, exactly, that these rent rates, were realistic numbers for our client to run the numbers with. Again, it's got a two-car garage, you've got bars, you've got green space, easy access to anywhere around town. So I really feel like this rental unit will probably be for somebody who is just moving into town and just wants to be close to everything and just allow themselves to really figure out the city, and they're kind of willing to pay for a premium of a brand new build. That's just my whole take on it.
Oh, I agree with you. And then we ran it by one of our property managers, and they confirmed, before we didn't tell them that, hey, Lauren, I confirmed this, we got, I think it was a little bit below this.
Yeah, they gave us
but
numbers
not far
lower.
much below it.
But they don't do they really do these types of units though?
I can't remember.
Our go-to property manager.
Can't remember.
Yeah. And again, too, it's just difficult to do rent rates around here because you have majority surrounding it is older homes. But again, I think that that rate is going to be easy to get.
Yeah, I agree. And all the other assumptions kind of standard 5% vacancy, being served 3% rent increase, 3% appreciation, all that stuff. He plans on self-managing. Now, one thing we discussed with this client is that he travels a lot for work. He's fine self-managing, but he may hire a property manager, do like a tenant-only placement. And that'll be half month's rent is usually typical out there, so that way they handle all the showings, the leasing, the tenant screening, all that stuff, and then he's fine self-managing afterwards to take over the the monthly payments.
Yeah.
Especially with a new build here, like knock on wood, there should not be too many repairs. And for the monthly reserves and repairs maintenance, we put in there at 5%, which is what we usually do for townhomes and condos, especially since this is a new build, brand new stuff, has a warranty for a while as well, so hopefully for the first few years it's actually lower than that. On some of the renovated properties we've seen, a lot of times we've been in like the 1, 2, 3% range the first couple of years, but always like to kind of like ballpark higher because it eventually averages out. And so there is an HOA on here, and you explained to me once, Lauren, but explain to me and the listeners again.
Yeah, so there is not a true HOA on this. There's a party wall for all the different owners, but they do just have like a shared property management fee. I forget which one is not metered. I think it might have been like the water. There's just like one water meter for everybody. So they just gave us estimated numbers of like roughly like $110 a month for how much they think would be, charged to them. And then during the winter, it could fluctuate a little bit just based upon how much snow we get. They'll just call in their snow crew to come and just take care of everything as it happens. So they'll just tack that on as they need it.
So this covers water, sewer, snow removal?
Yes. Well, snow, we don't know. This isn't showing
us
snow.
Okay, that'll be bumped up a little bit? Okay, but they will at least take care of all of it.
Exactly.
Which makes it much easier for self-managing.
Yes.
So I mean, that's very reasonable. So taxes on here, this is interesting when you see a lot of these new builds, not the new build communities outside of town, but, new builds within the city like infill. So the actual taxes are about $1,400, which are extremely low for, a property in the $600,000. But, in Colorado, it's every 2 years they reassess property taxes. So, since this is a new build, a lot of the taxes are still assessed on whatever was there previously, the previous home, previous dirt lot, whatever was there.
Yep.
So we'll see it lower. And then looking at some other new builds around there that have been built up a couple years before, because, that's happening in Jefferson Park, we're estimating tax to be right around $3,000. So right now for this year and next year, he's going to have really low taxes.
Yep.
And then they'll probably jump up to, between $3,000 to $3,500 a year based off comps you're looking at.
Correct.
And his insurance, I mean, only $1,000 a year. That's really good for a property at this price point as well. And
won't his property insurance go down for him, like after he moves out?
Yeah, a lot of times it does. Because, while you're living there, they are, they got the same stuff for the property, the liability, but also they're insuring your personal property as well. Then once you move out, it's the landlord's policy, and then they're not insuring your personal property as well. They're just more insuring the liability and the structure. And then, you get your tenants to go out there and get a renter's policy for a few $100 a year. So we've often seen, not always, but it's not uncommon to see, hey, someone moves out, their insurance is, say, $2,000, they move out, it drops a few $100 or something lower. So, so it could drop. I mean, $1,000 is pretty good on there, I think, but hopefully it drops a little bit more.
Okay.
So utilities, no water and sewer because that is done by the HOA.
Correct.
No electric and gas because that will be paid for directly by the tenant. Trash, this is done for us in the property taxes. And then landscaping, snow removal, that's all HOA, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So pretty simple underwriting there. So getting into the next tab that shows the results here. It was a great surprise for us and exactly what Lauren said because of the low interest rates. It's going to cash flow estimated about $3,700 a year.
It's amazing.
Which, because we were interested as we were starting to look at like a higher end new, but like, oh, this is going to be great to see how it pencils out, especially lower interest rates. So we were stoked to see like it being close to $4,000 a year. So keep in mind, we are running it at the lower, taxes. So if it goes up a little bit, hey, the cash flow is going to drop a little bit. It'll still be positive. And plus, if we wanted to, like, there's probably enough meat on the bones there. Hey, go get a property manager.
Yeah.
Full 8% a month or so or whatever, and you'll be right around break even. So that was one of the great things that we looked at and discussed. Just depends on where he's at in a couple of years when he moves out. Hey, may self-manage, may hire a property manager, and whether he makes break even or makes a couple $1,000 a year, he wasn't too concerned about it because he wanted to ride the wave of growth over there. So that's giving him a 10% cash on cash return because he put so little down. And if you look at that ROIQ quadrant, the return on investment quadrant, we are seeing triple digit returns on there, and that's just because he has so little down on everything. So just overall, really great use of leverage, great use of VA loan, and he's along with our lines as well. He likes it. He knows he's high leverage. He's keeping some healthy cash reserves, just in case anything goes sideways, so he can hold on to it for 10 years or longer and build a bunch of wealth. So, anything else we need to mention on here, Lauren?
I don't think so. I mean, pretty much everything in here is what you just mentioned. One little side note, I did just find out that his sister just moved in. So he might be even getting...
Oh, it might be house hacking, huh?
He is actually kind of turning this into a little bit of a house hack. I know she just moved into town. She's just kind of getting on her feet, trying to find her next spot. So at least he'll be getting a little bit of cash flow now, which is great.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any questions on here or you want to pick Lauren's brains about new builds, definitely reach out to us. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next podcast.
Thank you.